А, Добре дошли на българските
Welcome to the Bulgarian viewers
нашия пореден вебинар.
and also foreign viewers of our webinar. You know, the webinars which are being implemented by Sirma about our strategy for transparent governance. In other words, we are trying to inform as much as possible all our investors and anyone else whom these may concern. This is done in many different ways. Of course, officially, we are announcing every 3 months our results on the information platform X3 News, and of course, the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, and both platforms secure translation into English. Of course, next we have our sites, which were recently upgraded. Sirma BG is in Bulgarian, and it addresses our investors and clients from Bulgaria, while Sirma.com is in English, and it mostly targets our foreign investors and clients, respectively. We know, sometimes you have informed us yourselves, that some of our products and services are a bit difficult to grasp in terms of essence and nature. That's why on YouTube we started a sequel of videos where we are trying to cast some light on different products and services of ours, and also there are interesting videos with clients of ours who are explaining how we help them and what improved in their work. Practically every single day on Facebook there are some news about Sirma, by Sirma, in all aspects, new products, new services, new companies and all else. We have a list where we directly disseminate news through email, and of course the Skype address and the email, which you can see here. They are always open and active, and currently you may place your questions on this current webinar. At any other time you may also put your questions there. The specificity of this webinar is that normally over these communication channels you will be receiving the answers by me. I'm the Director of Investor Relations and my name is Stanislav Tanushev. The good thing about webinars is that you are not getting the answers from me but directly from the management of Sirma Group. From left to right on your screens, you may see Mr. Tsvetan Alexiev, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Sirma Group, Ms. Radka Peneva, who is our Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Yordan Nedev, who is an independent member of the Board of Directors of Sirma Group Holding. You may ask your questions at the already given addresses in Skype and email, and they shall receive an answer in the second half of our webinar. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to our CEO so that he may tell you about results achieved in the year 2017 and the first months of 2018, and the anticipated development of Sirma throughout this year. Hello. It is my true pleasure that we are meeting here, even indirectly. I shall offer you a presentation which, as mentioned by Stanislav, is going to outline the key events for the previous year, and of course some events which already took place since we already have completed the first quarter of this year, and a bit about the strategy that we have developed. In other words, we planned this webinar so that it may precede the general meeting of shareholders of the company and cast some further light preliminarily for our shareholders, and also to prepare them for participation in the general meeting of shareholders of our company. I shall start very briefly with a comparison. For the sixth consecutive year, Sirma has achieved a growth exceeding 20%. I started thinking of that, and it truly was my focus to juxtapose, because it's very difficult for a business to grow by over 20% for 6 years in a row. I know it firsthand, obviously, and I tried to look around over the internet on gross domestic product and so on, and what I reached as a conclusion was that if all the Bulgarian companies have been growing by 20% annually, we would have had GDP, nationally speaking, that would match Czech Republic or Portugal, and it would well exceed the GDP of Greece. But what happened, as a matter of fact, was alas, it did not happen, because today the GDP of Bulgaria is 3 times smaller than that of Greece and almost 4 times smaller than the Czech Republic. In other words, yes, indeed, we did manage some contribution, but unfortunately not all are as good as us. Of course, this is something that I'm trying to lend humor to, but it is quite a simple and straightforward demonstration of what the consequence is. And now the specific results. 26.6 million euro or 52 million in terms of revenue. The average growth for the last years is 24%. We have more than 360 employees. We sell throughout more than 60 countries, practically all continents, and this is very briefly a picture in figures. You see in the graphic where it is clearly shown that we started with 9 million euro of revenue, and currently we already have achieved 27 million almost for the year 2017. And further highlights: 49% of our sales are generated in the USA and Western Europe. We are already present on the markets in Canada, Brazil, of course, Bulgaria, the UK, Great Britain, Albania. In other words, these are the places where we already have functioning offices, and we plan, and we are actively trying to open our offices at the United Arab Emirates, and we are exploring the chances to also enter India. 41% is our share of revenue from products, and 55% the recurring client sales, and on overall 68,000 euro per IT specialist. What were the key events for the year 2017? I need to touch upon some of them only, because you can imagine that throughout the whole calendar year in Sirma so many different things happen. Indeed, some of them are establishing the Albanian company in partnership with an Albanian IT company. This partnership, I have to say gladly, is developing beautifully, because our company started already to grow, and some of the first projects that we are realizing there with the IT specialists based in Tirana are a fact. As a matter of fact, I would like to heavily underline our pleasure with this step, because it turns out that in Albania the level of education is quite good, and the young and smart people are very motivated, and they command good English, and they managed to match excellently the corporate culture of Sirma Group Holding. Other events in the year 2017, the following: we managed to increase the capital of Ontotext so that we could develop products and achieve a higher, that is a larger market share in terms of sales. We also managed to get the shares of Sirma Group on Solfix, and I suppose that it is quite significant that we managed to celebrate our 25th anniversary in the year 2017 in style, and apart from the festivities and celebrations, what happened was that we developed the company strategy for the next 5 years. This was indeed associated with lots of work, lots of planning, but I believe that we have achieved an excellent result in terms of obtaining the strategic for the company document. We started and we are already implementing the strategy. Of course, we have presented it repeatedly before our shareholders. The key events that have happened in the year 2018 until today are that we managed to purchase shares from Multitext. In other words, we're getting closer and closer to entirely buying Ontotext. This has to do with the strategy, the AI strategy of our company. On Ontotext, we have concentrated quite a few of the technologies that we would wish to develop, and they are included in the strategic development strategy of the group. The shares of Sirma Group are already traded on the premium segment of the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. In May 2018, we adopted a decision to again augment our capital through the Bulgarian Stock Exchange again. And as a matter of fact, yesterday, the Financial Supervision Commission announced our approved prospect to increase capital, which is practically a wonderful piece of news for all of us. Another thing that happened in the year 2018, of course, it has to do with the strict business of the company, product development. We launched a new Sirma Medical Systems product, also other two products of InkView systems. One is Pagate, and the other one, M-Caliper. Pagate is a product which relates to the packaging industry, while M-Caliper is a measurement product. Sirma Medical Systems also started a very interesting application, which is supposed to treat stammering. You know, it is something in the best benefit of stutterers. This was, of course, built in our partnership with some professors from the United States, and this is where we launched the sales, and surprisingly, everything is happening quite well in this respect. What interesting projects and awards have we achieved in the last few months? I suppose that one of the most significant events for the group last year was the fact that we started a colossal long-term project with the Financial Mechanism Office of the European Economic Area, or the so-called Norwegian grant in Brussels. This is a truly huge project which, well, very, very large indeed for Sirma, that is going to continue until the year 2022, at least for 5 more years. And the interesting thing here is that it was a public tender which enjoyed very vivid interest by European companies of all sizes, and we managed to win against 19 other companies, starting with some giants in the IT industry, and companies our size, and so on and so forth. And this truly is a huge success, not just for Sirma, but for the Bulgarian IT industry as such, because during this process for evaluation, the tender, practically the representatives of this European organization mentioned that they are very impressed with the level of the IT industry in Bulgaria. Another success that we managed to attain was that for the third year in a row we got the award rather, at the best award at the prestigious show CES in Las Vegas, with a product which was entirely developed by Sirma for a client of ours, and I believe that this indeed is a pioneering act, managing to gain awards at three consecutive such shows, because indeed the competition there is enormous. Another success of ours is that 3 out of the 5 largest STM, that is Science, Technology and Medicine publishing houses, are using our GraphDB product for management of content. We also signed agreements with 2 of the largest system integrators in the world, Atos and Infosys. And through Infosys, we already started getting quite a few large projects with European clients. We also concluded a contract with the top 3 banks in the US, also a contract with one of the leading agencies for market information, and all of these are contracts associated with applying our AI technologies and cognitive technologies too, which, as a matter of fact, is a fantastic, outstanding success for a Bulgarian company to manage to treat this area. We also implemented dozens of contracts, and we provided technology to some international giants, banks, pharmaceuticals, industrial groups, and quite frequently in fierce competition with IT giants like IBM, Microsoft, and so on. We managed to win and to land contracts with companies that are never signing these contracts with just any player in the market. Once again, the consolidated financial results for the year 2017, 52 million revenue, EBITDA 15 million, return on equity 59%, net profit of 69%, net profit margin of 35%. The geographic penetration of revenue for the year 2017 goes as follows: 51% Bulgaria. No, I do apologize. Yes, indeed, 51% for Bulgaria. The States, 16.74%. The UK, almost 16%. Of course, in our strategy, as I show further note, we have included an increase of the relative shares from Northern America and Western Europe. The consolidated financial results for the first quarter of the year 2018 have also been disclosed. That is 12.5 million revenue, which is again almost 20% growth versus the same period for the previous year. EBITDA of 2.5 million level. The net profit is increased by 19.6%. As I already mentioned earlier, in the year 2017, we marked a quarter of a century of our company, and we developed the strategy for the next 5 years. Very, very briefly indeed. We have already communicated repeatedly, but in any case, our strategy is focused on AI-based technologies, because we believe that this is the trend. Artificial intelligence is going to increasingly be included throughout organizations, our everyday life, and so on. We planned integration of the existing technologies for our future R&D activity in a mega product which is called Senpai. That is the Sirma Enterprise Platform with AI. In Senpai, as a matter of fact, there are technologies that we've been working on for quite a few years already, such as the GraphDB, the graph database, or the algorithms and technologies for text analysis and video image, all sorts of images. Senpai, if you go to our site, there is a diagram of Senpai which is very simplified indeed, and still it has loads of cells. Some of these cells are the technologies that we already have and the ones that we keep investing in and developing. Part of the other cells are technologies that we still don't have available, but we really wish that we would have, and we shall invest in them in the next years. And of course, same as any other platform, we have cells of full technologies that we would need so that we may successfully implement products related to AI, but we do not wish to invest ourselves in them, and we would sooner be inclined to use third-party technologies. In other words, Senpai is a platform which allows us to quickly, promptly, efficiently, effectively and at highest level implement projects related to the implementation of artificial intelligence throughout the organizations. This has to do with the fourth industrial revolution. It also is related to trends where people and artificial intelligence shall work and live in symbiosis. This is what we truly believe shall happen in the future, and this is our mission, to facilitate this transition towards intelligent organization for our clients. What are our strategic objectives? To reach 100 million in revenue towards the year 2022. Why 100 million? Well, because we believe that this is the boundary where a company starts being perceived as a serious player, also on the international level. We would wish to increase the share from sales of products and SaaS, to improve our operative efficiency. We have also planned for these 5 years a median mean compound annual growth rate of 30%, which can only be achieved through increased capital, as we started indeed such an effort, so that we may manage 20 million fresh money for our development, and we need to also achieve 70% revenue share from North America and Europe, and 70% revenue share of SaaS, and 24% EBITDA revenue rate. By achieving these parameters, I believe that we shall be able to achieve a very successful IPO on a large international exchange, of course, with very high evaluation of the company. What we have planned to happen so that we may attain these goals, so that towards the year 2022 we could have an IPO at Nasdaq and be the first Bulgarian company that has managed a valuation no less than $200 to $300 million. And so the steps are the following. What we have started doing already and is in the process of being achieved is increase capital, concentrate all intellectual rights into a new company, which is called by us Sirma AI. Towards the end of this year, we shall launch the first version of Senpai. Senpai is not something that we have to yet start from zero. Instead, these are technologies, part of which we already have available. And as a matter of fact, we're already implementing projects employing these technologies, such as BBC, Financial Times, Nikkei, Standard & Poor's, and so on. Afterwards, we plan a merger of Sirma AI towards Sirma Group Holding, so that all the intellectual property rights and the key core technological power and technology may be into the holding company, so that they may be closer to your shareholders. Of course, we plan to acquire technological development companies and also affiliation with IT distributors. Also, we need to update our vertical solutions and build new sale models and launch new cognitive products by verticals, next versions of Senpai, and so on. As I mentioned already, our objective is 100 million revenue towards the year 2022. But speaking of this current year, 2018, what we aim to achieve is 32.5 million euro, which is a growth of 24%, EBITDA 6.4 million euro, which is 20% margin rather. And it is quite clear here that in the year 2018 we have a slight decrease of the growth versus 2017. However, this has its rational explanation, because in the year 2018 we have focused all our efforts and attention on the successful SPO, and also complete the key technological restructuring, which normally takes a bit from the speed of growth. And then from the year 2019, the rate of growth should be not just restored, but also pumped up to 30%, 34%, etc. for the next few years. Now, this is very briefly from me on the forecast and what's happened in during the past year, and what we are expecting for the current year. I did mention again very briefly what the company strategy will be, as mentioned by Stanislav. All the materials that are related to our products in our strategy are available on the updated sites of Sirma, and I shall be very glad if we could gain some feedback from you. On the English side of the company, Sirma.com, you can also have a dialogue with one of our chatbots to ask around about Sirma. And we should soon have such an option in Bulgarian language too. I suppose in a fortnight, for the time being, it is in English only. We created this chatbot just as a jest and a slight demonstration of what can be achieved with cognitive technologies, of course. It is not that smart yet, of course, because it has been achieved with the minimum of efforts, but it is quite an interesting demonstration of what can be achieved through AI. And if you multiply this by 100, you have some faint idea of what can be achieved with our currently commanded technologies. And now let's move on to the questions. I hope that it was interesting for all of you, this presentation of results achieved and our ambitions for the next few years. We have some questions already, and I would encourage all of you who would wish to ask anything, use Sirma IR or the email sirmair@.bg. The first question addresses directly Mr. Alexiev, and it is: what is the reason for the new issue, and also what will the attracted revenue be used for from the secondary public offering? Well, I reckon that I already started by answering this question. Our SPO, this 20 million euro, we need this amount as fuel for our growth, so that we may achieve the aims that we have already projected in the future. I already mentioned what our business objectives are, what the money will be used for. It will be used partly for research and development, so that we may develop new products, new technologies, and the other part is to increase our market share and marketing and sales capacity, including through the acquisition of companies for this particular purpose. All right, thank you. And here we have a more intriguing question. Why is trust in Sirma slumping from 1.19 level per share to 90 zloty per share, bearing in mind the nominal value, which is 1 level? We may eventually combine this with another question, which is, how does the company intend to justify investments into it and restore the trust of investors? Maybe Mr. Nedev could help us? Of course, I may. Thank you. Hi. We show a trend from artificial intelligence to national biological intelligence, obviously, because this question is directly associated with it. I shall start with a theoretical detour, because I believe it is quite meaningful and it does elucidate some of the processes on the exchanges and more specifically the Bulgarian Stock Exchange and our shares at the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. We all agree that in principle the slump in price of any asset being traded at the public market is an indication of decreasing trust, but here we have to have bold letters. But, or however, purely theoretically, this can be done if we have a perfect market. What is the ideal market? The market where no single economic agent can have some influence on the price of assets, and all the information is trustworthy, prompt, accessible, blanketly accessible, and thirdly, a market where the price is a very strict indication of the value of the asset or share in this particular case, and this price in the ideal environment would not even be influenced by supply and demand, while on our Bulgarian Stock Exchange only the middle condition is met. In other words, we have prompt, trustworthy and accessible information. The other two criteria for an ideal environment are diametrically opposed to what we should achieve, because absolutely everyone could influence the price. We have some flabbergasting occurrences with some investments of 3 to 5 level, and the price was changing nevertheless. And also, unfortunately, on our exchange, since it is low in terms of liquidity and density, supply and demand are the single key factors that are influencing the price, not the value. Wow, the value is all about the foundation. Because Mr. Alexiev was talking about the foundation of Sirma for the last 6 years, 24% growth, which is definitely something to be looked up to, and it would impress many other markets. While in Bulgaria, as we look at the price, we'll think that this is obviously very insufficient, but with all this long sentence of mine, I meant to tell you that in our modest analysis, we have not certain that there is any lack of trust towards the shares of Sirma or the activity of Sirma. It is rather telling of certain deficits in the market and maybe our own behavior, but we have to say that it is quite an effort to sometimes cast light upon our activity, which is inherent for the simple reason that in our capacity of IT company, we are into innovation, which obviously cannot be straightforwardly and simply understood by all, because if it was very understandable, it wouldn't be innovation, would it? Don't you? Here, I have to answer to why our share value is falling. I would say I don't know. Obviously, firstly, you said what you think, and I reckon that Radka could also contribute something to this question. I truly cannot tell you why. To me, the shares of Sirma are very underestimated. Unfortunately, presently, we only have 2 openings, 2 windows where we can buy. One of the windows is now. Since they are underestimated, I'm buying because I do trust my company. I haven't put money in any other investment because I do believe that our shares are very cool to buy, and they are severely undervalued, and they show they should have a much higher value. Imagine having a company that makes 100 million euro or even dollars. Indeed, the price is 300, 500 million even, and it depends on the moods on the market and whatever your plans are and what clients you have attracted on this market. To me, this is something self-evident, and I don't know, whoever wishes to sell at 90s to think is sell. I mean, yes, indeed, our market is quite specific. It has nothing to do with the American or the British market or the other big German, etc. exchanges. So, there was such a question which I believe that we should touch upon about some of the sales, the larger sales which are being effected. Well, in this connection, I would insist on the opinion, the take of Radka on this market. On all exchanges, what's happening is below. But not just that, the balance value of the Sirma values is 147 with a market of roughly 1 level, because around 90 to think it is something not acceptable by me, because this is speculation. Apart from that, why do we believe that Sirma has been undervalued? Firstly, apart from BNR, we are the only company in the technological sector on the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. No, we are 1 of 3. Oh, BNR and Altea also. Oh, right. Okay, so we are only 3 companies. Altea Group, BNR and Sirma. Secondly, I don't think that interest in our shares is low, because as a matter of fact, out of 40 shareholders in the IPO, the end of 2015, currently we have more than 1,100 shareholders. Yes, indeed, practically all our employees have bought some shares because they trusted their company. However, you know, there are just 400 employees out of 1,100, if you would deduct 400, we have 700 new shareholders. Probably there are some interests that are wishing to undervalue our shares before the SPO, so that they may realize higher profits. This is quite probable too. This is a market which is influenced by rumors, by different factors, a wide array of things. If you wish, even bad intentions, because our exchange is very constricted, a very small volume. When the directors were buying, we noticed the fact that they bought 37,000 shares, and this was 20% of the overall trading at the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. In other words, it's quite normal for things to develop on this market in such a fashion. However, I reckon that there is a truly serious effort from the Bulgarian investment community and the Bulgarian Stock Exchange for things to change for the better, and positive economic development in this country, and also factors which are in terms of relative political stability, show also exert their positive influence in the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, is going to boast the authority which should be imposed throughout the European community. On the other hand, my colleagues contributed for the Bulgarian Stock Exchange to be recognized in the USA, the OTC, and Bulgarian companies can also base on the information provided by the Bulgarian Stock Exchange so that they can take part in OTC. Things are indeed happening gradually, but they are happening, and we hope that our investors should also be optimistic and show support us for the next issue that we are planning and which has already been approved by the Financial Supervision Commission. Okay, so we heard three opinions. I don't know, to me it's vastly logical, so I don't know what to comment. There is another question which has some connection to the context currently discussed. I have to rephrase it a bit. Our general meeting shall be on the 25th of June. It is not decided yet. Why will there be no dividend for the year 2017? This decision shall be taken at the General Assembly, but I believe that indeed the proposed way of acting is not to share any dividend. Well, our strategy is focused on enormous growth and very difficult to attain objectives. You see 30% annual growth and achieving 100 million annual revenue. This is not that simple. We are also augmenting our capital this year, and it would be very logical to ask for some money on one hand, on the other hand, spend money. Technological companies, this is one of the distinctive features of them all over the world, is that shareholders are practically managing to profit from the increased value and capitalization on the exchange. Well, obviously on our exchange, this is obviously quite convoluted because you see that our revenue is growing, yet the price of shares is falling. But I believe that after all, this shall be corrected. It can't go on forever. And indeed, the value of this company is going to be increased also on the exchange. Why aren't we giving dividend? I think I am one of the largest shareholders, and it would be in my best interest to gain some dividend, but we don't wish to draw blood from the company, because this money invested into business is going to lead to much bigger growth and better profit in the next few years. This is the reason. And we have also consulted with our other big stockholders, shareholders, some of the pension funds and so on, and most of them agreed around the view that a technological company that has such ambitious plans it would be pointless to give dividends under the circumstances. And yet another question which is associated with what was just provided as an answer. Why did some of the majority shareholders sell shares for almost 7 million? I believe that this is a mistake, though. Radka? Well, personally, I do not believe that the majority shareholders have sold shares for 7 million. We have these references every quarter about the value of our shares and who is in possession of more than 5% of the company capital. Yes, indeed, up to 2.5 to 3 million. Some of our colleagues have moved to the United States, and it's quite normal for them to get some financial footing for this new life that they have embarked on. Others have some mortgage loans, yet others are trying to educate their kids abroad, but on overall, trading in this stock is not that significant. More interestingly, we have an increased number of shareholders who are interested in the company, and also partly some foreign shareholders have been included in the purchase of shares from the Sirma capital. So I reckon that they are misusing this topic, abusing it rather, about the sale of majority shareholder stock. They are all keeping their stock and they are still working for the company, and they are trusting the future successes and the current growth and its positioning of our company as the leading provider of AI solutions. I have one last question from the ones that have already been provided. Let me just tell you that as some of the ones, people who ask questions, we are pulling up all of them. So the last one is, how will the price of 90 zloty per share reflect upon the price of 1 lev per share at the SPO? Wouldn't it be more advantageous to buy from the previous issue at the lower price? Firstly, the price, this thing with the price of 90 zloty is again mostly a speculation, because the price used to be 90 zloty barely for a few days. The second thing that I need to emphasize on is that we don't have such volume of shares offered on the market as will be achieved through the new issue. And the third thing that I need to tell you is that, again, I have to repeat myself, but I need to underline it heavily, the purchase of shares at lower price so that the right to participate in the new issue may be achieved is the purpose of quite a few investors, or at least this is my hope. We have no more questions. Of course, the already mentioned channels of communication are open 24/7. It is not just over the webinar that you can ask your questions, but instead of the time. Thank you all for your time, attention, and the interesting questions. And see you soon again. I also thank you, and I wish you all the best. See you.